What? Green screen. Uncle Ron stuff. Another episode of Uncle Ron stuff, and today it's about hitchhiking. Why did it do that? There. It's about hitchhiking, or also known as thumbing, and it may be still prevalent in some parts of the country, but it is certainly not around here. And I attribute that. It certainly impacted me. There was a movie called The Hitcher, I think it was, and that was where a couple picked up a hitchhiker by the road out in Arizona or New Mexico or some such barren, sandy sort of place, and gave this fellow a ride. And of course he was a total psychopath and killed people, and he followed them, and you know, no matter what they tried to get away from him, he couldn't. Anyway, the whole idea of a hitchhiker as a mass murderer became into the American consciousness. But at one time, it was not uncommon to see someone standing beside the road somewhere with their thumb out, indicating that they would like a ride. And it was not everybody had an automobile, and on some roads, bicycles were impossible. Bicycles are around, but not to the extent they are in Europe. But anyway, hitchhiking. And I was going to try to give some history of hitchhiking before it completely disappears from the American history or consciousness. I hope that in some areas of the country there is still hitchhiking, and people still stop their cars, pick up a hitchhiker, and take them for some whatever distance. I doubt, in my particular case, in my history, wherever they were going was not totally to my destination, but I got one ride or two rides and three rides, and some walking, and I eventually got to my destination. Hitchhiking was, it had stereotyping in it as well. White people were more reluctant to pick up a black man hitchhiking than a white man, and I only ever picked up one woman hitchhiking. All the years that I picked up a lot of hitchhikers over the years and gave them rides from, you know, short distances to long distances, and we struck up a conversation. It was always interesting to meet somebody that way, and shared some water and so on. But I only ever picked up one woman, and I don't believe women, that would be a scary thing for a woman to be hitchhiking, but I'm sure some did it. The one I picked up, and I don't know, I was actually going somewhere and had a destination at the time I was supposed to be there, but beside this road was a very attractive young girl, 17, 18, 19, and so I stopped, and she looked in the car and decided I was okay, you know, so she got in, and when I turned to say hello to her and greet her, she had red eyes. It was like, what? You know, what have I got myself into? And I said, what? And she said, red contacts. She had ordered red contacts, and she had red eyes. It was bizarre. Anyway, she was on her way to see her boyfriend who was in prison. That's all I remember. Red eyes and prison. Anyway, hitchhiking. I have picked up people and given them rides, and I've also hitchhiked myself. Every time was an experience, whether I picked somebody else up or I hitched a ride. I didn't have a car for a very long time. I didn't have a car. I think maybe the last year I was in college. I had borrowed my father's car, who was ill at the time, and so I had access to a car that way. But otherwise, I lived about, I don't know, 120 miles, 3 hours from home. So I did hitchhike. Also took the Greyhound bus, but I did hitchhike. And one particular time I remember, because it was one of those, as I say, every hitchhike was an adventure in itself. Speaking of which, people used to hitchhike around the country. It would be like my daughter and one of her friends went to Europe, and they hitchhiked, or they traveled around Europe. They took buses, trains, planes, they walked. That was not uncommon. You graduated from college and you went to Europe and you looked around for a while. You stayed at hostels and you saw sights and you met people and you sampled the beer and that sort of thing. Hitchhiking in America, there were those who did that. I was sort of astounded. My mentor in college, Dr. Dean Foster, I used to visit him at his home and we would get to talking, and he had done that after he graduated from the University of Indiana, and before he started graduate school, he hitchhiked around the country. And that was probably in sometime in the 40s. He was not in the World War II. But it must have been during that period he graduated from college, and as a chemist, and maybe had a deferment, or I don't remember anything about that, except I know that he hitchhiked around before he went to graduate school, and that was not uncommon. As a side note, there are people who hike long mountain trails. There's Pacific whatever trail that goes from way down in Mexico all the way up to literally northernmost tip of the United States. I think it's like 2,000, 3,000 miles long. I don't know. There are what's called through hikers that will hike that whole distance. It takes them months, and that's a different kind of deal. But I'm back on hitchhiking. So I've hitchhiked rides before, and one of them was I needed to get home, and I guess I didn't have the money for a bus, or I don't know what reason, but I was hitchhiking outside of Lexington, and I went to a school there, and there was also a school there called William and Washington and Lee, which was really a pre-law and law school. And the alumni, everybody who was there was mainly a son. I don't remember too many women per se, but sons or daughters of lawyers who had graduated from Washington and Lee University, which was a prestigious, I got it, law school at the time, and probably still is. It doesn't rank up with Harvard or Yale or something, but it is, Anyway, I'm hitchhiking a ride, and all of a sudden this little teeny sports car pulls in off the road, and I go over, and where are you going? I'm going way down the road. Okay, So it's a Lotus, Elan, I think that was the name of it. It was very small, 2-seat, Italian, I guess, sport car. So he pulls back on Route 81, which is a dual highway at a speed limit of 65 or 70, something like that. He hits the highway, and immediately we're doing 100, 110, and not too much traffic in those days. Well, not like now. And he could go for a long way before he had to weave around slower traffic. But we're just plowing down Route 81. We're actually going 81 north at 110 miles an hour, and I'm not really saying too much because I want them to pay attention to the road. But anyway, we come across this hill, and there's a state police car on the side, and obviously set up as a radar trap, a speed limit trap. And he goes right on through, and of course the cop, he looks in his rearview mirror, and yep, the cop is after him. he never slows down. He continues on down the road at 100, 110, and the cop takes a while, but he starts catching up to him. But 81 at the time was hilly. You could go down deep, over a deep hill and go into a kind of a valley and then up over a hill. Anyway, in one of those, we went over top of a hill and started down the valley, and all of a sudden he slammed his brakes on really hard and did a sharp turn to the right, and we pulled into, we threw dust and everything. He pulled in beside an abandoned gas station and pulled up right beside it and stopped. And it wasn't more than 2, 3, 4 seconds later that cop car that was following us went right on by. And we stayed there for a few minutes and got back on the road and continued. And I honestly can't remember if he kept at his 100-mile-an-hour rate or not, or he settled back into a more reasonable speed limit rate. But I'd never been in a sports car like that. This was brand new, and it was, I don't think I'd owned one, but it was fast and handled like crazy. When I got out of the Army, we had bought a mobile home for my wife to live in while I was in the military service, and one of my classmates had been stationed at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, which is the home of the field artillery. Yeah, for the Army. And I won't go through all the deal there, but he had met somebody and they got along really well. It was a captain, had served in Vietnam, but things had gotten jumbled up out there. And anyway, this captain had headed out, kind of hitchhike the country. But before he left, he was smart enough, and Uncle Ron idea, was to see if he could extract any names from anybody he knew that lived in other parts of the country, that it might be okay if he knocked on their door and said, hey, and I know, can you do whatever you can to help me? Can I have a place to stay for the night or a meal? And anyway, one day, this guy knocks on the door, and he says, I was in Fort Sill with your classmate, blah, blah. And sure, come on in, Anyway, that was my friend Murray. That's how I met my friend Murray. And we got along instantly. He was into music, and I think we were both smoking pot at the time, which had been an artifact of being in Vietnam or South Korea or just about any place in the world where you could get wacky weed. Anyway, he stayed for a couple of days. It was an interesting story because he decided he needed to move on. And I don't know where he was going. He didn't know where he was going, except he was still headed north. So anyway, he left. We said our goodbyes. He got out on the road. He started sticking out his thumb. I don't know, an hour or two later, I had to go somewhere. I had to go in town. I had to go north. So the small road out front, I headed that way. And lo and behold, just before I hit the city limits, there he was, standing beside the road with his thumb out. So I stopped and picked him up and said, hey, come on back for a little longer. And that's what he did. And our friendship lasted for 40 years. He passed away some time ago. And we spent a lot of nights talking about, he had a lot to talk about Vietnam. And he was a captain of Vietnam field artillery and stuck out on one of those, just a battery on a hill that somebody called in and said, I need shells sent here and there. And he was one of those ones where the Viet Cong tried to overrun the compound. And he was saying it was bizarre. He had to level the tubes down to ground level. And and blast away. And anyway, hitchhiking. It used to be you could do that. One of the most famous hitchhikes that I had, which again I can't sort out if it's a dream or it's was real, and you'll say it's a dream, but anyway, I'm going to work one morning, and I used to have to go through sort of a neighborhood to get out to the main road, which was a dual lane highway, and already everybody was doing 55 or 60 on it. So going to the neighborhood, I'm doing 25 or 30 or something, and then all of a sudden you hit the Indy 500, okay? And I was half asleep, and just before I got to the dual lane highway, there was a guy holding out his thumb, and obviously he was going to go in the direction I was headed in. So I stopped and picked him up, and we said very little. Good morning. I wasn't in the mood to talk. Obviously he wasn't. But where are you going? Just down the road. Okay. You know, I got to go to down here. He says I'd be fine. And says we're sitting in silence for a while, and I'm driving and paying attention because of Indy 500 around me. And all of a sudden I start getting this really strange feeling. And it's not a negative feeling, it's a very uplifting and light feeling. And I don't know, I absolutely positively know it was Jesus sitting over in that seat. Jesus was hitchhiking. I had picked him up, and I had not a clue what to say to him. I mean, I could feel it, but I didn't. Felt like I had nothing, you know. Anyway, we're going down the road, and I finally turned. He had never said get out or anything. We just kept driving. So as I got close to my destination, I came up to a traffic light. Actually, it was the traffic light outside of the CIA headquarters in McLean, Virginia. And when we stopped at the traffic light, he looked over at me, he stuck his hand out and said, "This will be fine." So, okay, thanks, nice to meet you. We said goodbye. He stepped out of the car, and the light turned green, and I went on ahead. And I don't know, I wasn't too far down the road, and I was compelled to look in the rearview mirror. He wasn't there. I don't know. Hitchhiking. I did some. I picked up some people. There were other people, and every one of them had great stories. I hitchhiked one night for a couple 100 miles with these three guys in a car that were drinking beer, and they were driving 100 miles an hour. And it was raining out, and it worked out. I haven't picked up hitchhiker in a long time now. I will see one now and again, but usually by the time I see them, I'm only going another couple 100 feet. So I don't know there's any point to picking them up. But once upon a time there was hitchhiking, and if you ever see somebody on the road with their thumb stuck out, that's what it means. I don't even know if people knows that's what it means anymore. I'm hitching a ride. I'm thumbing. I need a ride someplace. And, risky? I don't think everybody hitching a ride is a complete psychopath or going to steal all your money or rape you or whatever. I guess there's some risk to it. But maybe it's how you see them and your initial gut reaction. I don't know. But once upon a time there was a hitchhiking going on in the United States. I never saw any hitchhiking in South Korea. They had buses there and people would get on the buses, but I never saw anybody hitchhiking. Walking, yes, but never had their thumb out. I don't know if it is an American tradition or a cultural thing, or if it's common all over the world. I don't know that. I've never asked anybody that. If you see hitchhikers in Germany or France, certainly during the war, after the war, people had moved around a lot, and public transportation was not what it is today. So there had to have been people on the move, and maybe some of them did hitch a ride. I've seen movies where people got in a ride, you know, a truck stopped and had a flatbed on the back, and yeah, you need a ride, yeah, get in the back of get in the back of the bed, get in the bed of the truck, and he would take them some way. And I'm sure that probably still goes on, and that probably happened after World War II in Europe a lot. You wouldn't be the only hitcher on the back of that truck. You'd be maybe another family with you or something. I don't know. Hitchhiking American, hopefully it's still going on out there someplace. I don't know what else to say about it. Like I say, I hitched a bunch of times, and I've given hitchhikes to people. It's not a hitchhike story, but it's similar, and I think it's worth repeating. One night, I don't know, it was probably close to 11, 12 o'clock. For some reason, and I don't remember what it was, I had to go to 7-Eleven. And I went to one that I normally didn't go to because it had closed by 11 o'clock. And when I got in my car and went in, there was a young girl, under 20, standing outside with no shoes. This was wintertime. It was like 30 degrees. She had no shoes on and no coat on, and had her arms around herself, and she never said a word, didn't look at me. And anyway, I went in, and I'm thinking, what the hell is the story? But it's her, you know. Anyway, I came out and I said, hello, you need some help. And she explained to me that she had been in jail, and I don't remember if I ever asked her what offense she had done for which she had been jailed, but the part that struck me was the police she had served her time, or she was released on parole or whatever, but they had taken her back to the spot where she had been arrested, i.e. that 7-Eleven right out front. Whatever she had done had occurred there. And that's where the police had released her. And I said, you didn't have any shoes when you got picked up? I don't remember her answer. But she had no shoes and no coat. So I said, look, just hang on for a few minutes. So I went home and I looked through all my shoes, and all I could come up with was like, what's going to fit her feet? Flip-flops and socks. I got a couple pair of socks, and I got some flip-flops. I got a pair of stretchy pants, and I got a couple of coats I had that were really work coats, but, you know. So I went back to her and got those socks on her feet, 2 pair of socks on her feet, which sort of filled out the flip-flops, and got coats on her. And I said, can there someplace I can take you, you know, I mean, and I don't remember, I'm sure I took her, there was a halfway shelter that I knew about. Now, they didn't have overnight accommodations, but there was somebody there like 24/7, and they would have arranged help for her, so I took her to that place. But what I was mystified is why and how the police had possibly released her in that condition. That just didn't seem right to me. I don't know, you know, maybe it was an all falsehood. I don't know, maybe she ran away from her boyfriend, but no shoes at like 30 degrees, no coat. She wasn't a hitchhiker per se, but I treated her as one, but she was in real need of help. Hitchhiking. Sometimes people I picked up, we talked. Sometimes we didn't. When I hitched rides, sometimes we talked, sometimes we didn't. Sometimes it was a long ride, sometimes it was a short ride. Sometimes it took 3 or 4 hitches to get close to where I was going. But if you're in that situation, for example, your car breaks down and you don't have a cell phone, or you can't get a hold of anybody, you might try this to hitch a ride to a nearby exit that may have a gas station. People don't know about hitching. There's a possibility that would work for you if your car is broken down by the side of the road. I don't know about women doing this, but men could, hey, you know, you stand by your broken down car and you hitch a ride, try to get to the next exit or next place that has a gas station that you might be able to talk to them to come out and look at your car. Anyway, I guess that's the end point. I don't know that hitching is done. For sure, when I hitched, I could stand by the road for, I don't know, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 minutes. Hiked the Appalachian Trail one time with two other boys. We were about 14 at the time, and we had finished the hike off the trail, and we were off the trail, and we were tired, and we were trying to get into the Luray. And they just couldn't make it. They couldn't walk another step, and so I started sticking in my thumb, hoping that we would catch a ride. And anyway, this car came up to the intersection we were standing, and he had to stop to make a turn. And he rolled his window down, and he said, "You don't need to be hitching a ride. Walking's good for you." And pulled out and left us there. And the other two we just melted. We broke down, and it took us an hour to recover from that sort of encouragement. Yeah, we'd already walked probably 20 miles that day, and it was hot, and we had another 8 or 10 to go before we could meet our parents. This is all too long, but it's about hitchhiking, and hopefully you've had a good experiences hitchhiking, or you know people who hitchhiked, and you met people that have hitchhiked. And don't forget that it is possible, if your car ever breaks down somewhere and you find yourself stranded, your cell phone doesn't work, you can't reach anybody, you might be able to use this to just get a ride to some place where they can help you. And obviously you have the choice. When that car door opens or the window rolls down, you look in, you can say, "Oh, that's okay, thanks a lot." You don't have to take a ride if offered to you. You can make some sort of quick snap judgment that, if it's a woman, for instance, you'd be more inclined to get in if the driver was a woman. I don't think I ever got picked up by a woman. Maybe they don't do it. But anyway, that's enough. This was about hitchhiking and trying to get the green screen going in the back. That my daughter had given me this image of the, let's see if I can go back further without it distorted. This is the old, where am I going? To the left or the right? Oh yeah, now I've whacked it all out. Let's see. Oop. It didn't help going that way. Go this way. This is the old Grateful Dead Steer Your Face iconic. It's on everything. Hats, posters. And it's a lightning bolt. And there is a song the Grateful Dead used to do called Lazy Lightning. Lazy Lightning. And another song about steal your face right off your head. Uncle Ronald's up today is the 6th of February 2025. I hope this records and I can post it.